All right, welcome to the fourth and final review of the evening. Up this time is Neo Harbor Rescue Squad. Live the life of a rookie paramedic through frantic minigame action and a wild, funny story. Juggle waves of patience with a battle like triage system, master dozens of treatment minigames, and win the city's recognition from the rival fire department. There's a lot to unpack there. And I'm going to preface this by saying this might be the most controversial review that we're going to be engaging in a good long while.
Oh, fun.
Because this game has been getting praised by notable outlets. And, cards on the table, this review is going to be the opposite of that. I'm like, I hated this game. I absolutely fucking hated this game. There. I'm just going to be upfront about it. Because okay. I guess the quickest way to get into it is describing this game as either a memento mori or a game out of time. Because you might have heard the words minigame action or treatment minigames. That word minigame. Now, if you know about video games and the word minigame, that kind of invokes a certain era. In fact, I think this came up in the reviews a few months back with another game. Because this game harkens back to the Wii and especially the DS era. It is a goddamn minigame collection. But definitely more on the DS end of things than the Wii. Because Wii minigame collections tend to be like Wii Sports ripoffs. More often than not. Carnival games and so on and so forth. Whereas, this is taking after Trauma Center, at least in terms of like the mini games presented. Like the glass plucking mini game is like that. I immediately flash back to Trauma Center with that one. Same mechanics. It's just instead of a stylus and a resistive touchscreen, I'm doing it with a fucking controller. And let me tell you...
Which loses something at best.
Right. Here's the thing. The mini games didn't get better with a controller. Oh. No, they were, adequate, dead simple, like something out of WarioWare, except they weren't, actual micro games, so... they didn't, you weren't facing 4 or 5 in a row and, that being the challenge. I mean, you do get that in the sense, like, you have to do maybe 2-3 mini games in a certain amount of time in order to save the patient. Like, okay, here it's coming up. Here you've got to inject. And yeah, do you see how fucking loosey-goosey that
Good
shit is?
Lord.
That is the fucking imprecision right out of the fucking Wii era. And I hated it. I hated every goddamn second of it. I was hoping that this wasn't going to be an angry review, but I guess no, I just have to rage about it a bit because I fucking hated this shit back, 15 years ago. I hate it now. It's like, it turns out having conventional control features on a mini game collection still, doesn't make it better. Like, at best, these things are clunky as shit. At worst, they don't fucking work. Or, you got to figure out the timing in a real-time scenario. Looking at you, defibrillator. Like, yeah, and here's one of the...
That's not how arms work, lad.
Oh. Yeah, no. You got to hold down the button and then start rubbing.
Mm.
But yeah, like everything feels bad. And, twitchy, clunky. Here's the minigame I was talking about. This is right out of Trauma Center. It's just, it worked much better with a stylus.
Yes.
And like, I'd imagine some of this might work better with mouse control, but
I'm just using a mouse, and no, it doesn't.
Oh. Yeah, a controller, like, honestly, I think I saw it work better with a controller. Like, I wasn't doing those wild gesticulations with analog controls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that.
Unless I was in full screen.
Believe it or not, for some things, touchscreen input really is the best way to handle certain things.
Specifically stylus, not just putting your fat meat finger on there.
It depends on the touchscreen. The DS had a resistive touchscreen, so you needed a stylus to make that work.
You can. It will work with a finger.
It'll work, but it's not ideal.
Yeah.
Also, the DS came with a strap with a mouse pointer for your thumb built in, as well as a built-in stylus.
The point is that the controls are not good. I'm not exactly sure what to call it. The game feel, the movement is god awful. That's what really got me to quit this thing. Everything being so twitchy, because otherwise it's just dead fucking simple. Like, good God. But there's more. I'm like, the art style is, once again, this is kind of a go-to for this kind of faux anime. This game looks like, maybe not as bad, but like
it looks like Trauma Center at home.
Yeah, like
something that wants to imitate the Trauma Center Ace Attorney anime aesthetic, but doesn't have quite the budget and/or is a Western thing trying to do anime.
It looks more like a European ripoff series. Think Totally Spies, Winx Club, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, good, the defibrillator. Oh, wow, you actually figured out the timing there. Like, but yeah, this is the actual gameplay. Like, it will add more meta things like the shields that will allow you to protect. That's later on, if you can get that far.
I feel like this is almost like WarioWare, only without the variety.
See, the thing that fucked me up with the defibrillator one is it didn't tell me they were going to be using Q and P when everything else is either around WASD or the mouse.
Right. No, it's definitely Trauma Center. Like, I the only one who played any of the Trauma Center games?
My mom enjoyed them, but I never really got into them.
A shame. Like, they were interesting in their own right. Not like they were kind of cheesy, over the top, but they were good. This is not good. Not in any fucking way. The story. So it's trying to do this tongue-in-cheek thing, like, as mentioned, one of the rescue people, the engineer, I think, is a dolphin. Here's the thing. It did one of the it made a mistake in making the rival team the fire department. Mainly because it was one of those things that took me so out of the narrative. I couldn't buy this. Even with
fire and rescue usually get along pretty well, I think, generally.
Yeah.
Right. But it's
when they're not the same thing.
Right, but and here's the thing. They're not the same thing here.
They're not always, but they usually work very closely together.
Right, and that's what I kept going back to. I'm like, why is there a rivalry here? Why is the city favoring the fire department when they're the fire department?
Yeah.
They do fire and rescue. Like they don't.
Not to get political, but the police was right there.
Right.
We're talking about things that are actually rivals to like the fire department and rescue sources.
Like there are some places that do have privatized ambulance service, like here. Our ambulance system is actually run by a private company instead of the city, and it sucks. Right.
There were ways to make this work. The fire department went in the way because I'm like, why is the fire department and the rescue squad beefing? The paramedics.
Mm-hmm.
They do different functions. There's no crossover. There's no rivalry. It's like just base fact here. And I'm just like, this doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
They don't work as rivals. Sorry, guys, you failed.
Like I get it. Some fire people group or whatever have some basic paramedic skills, but at the same time, if you need actual drugs, those are with the paramedics. Yeah.
And they're not calling these guys the paramedics, but they're the fucking paramedics.
Yeah.
They're doing they're doing paramedic things.
And I guess something real quick to note, they did mention when you boot the game, do not take this game as medical advice.
No, obviously.
It's better to make sure people know.
I assume it's just grounded enough content that's plausible as opposed to Trauma Center where they're dealing with very clearly fantastic disease situations.
Magic viruses and bullshit like that.
Right, and the doctor gets like magic powers that can slow down time.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of that here. Just unfortunately, this game is just, there's no other way to put it. It's fucking awful on so many levels. I was not expecting that going into this. I was not expecting to utterly despise this. But I do. I think it's one of the worst games we've reviewed in quite some time. That's not completely fucking broken.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting where I can understand the games now. Kind of, it's not as awful to me, but I definitely probably am not going back to it after this review.
Yeah, that's the thing. Even when you start learning the systems, it gets better, but it never crosses over into good.
Yeah.
It's like at no point did I ever want to stick with this. I didn't want to see the characters. I didn't want to see the story. I didn't want to see, what other gameplay elements, because, this game never crossed that hump. It's unfortunate, but you got to be honest with these things. We've delivered brutally honest reviews before, and it's gotten people pissed at us. But, we call them like we see them, and I call this a bad game. And I will stick by that. If the developers pitch a fit, so be it. I guess we'll be off their mailing list.
Mm.
Anyway, so obviously with that in mind, in terms of pricing, this game clocks in at $20. which is another invocation of like the DS era.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe like not the like. I wouldn't say this game is as bad as say Ubisoft's, Imagine Pets or something like that. But this does feel like something I would have plucked out of the bargain bin of a Walmart in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so no, it's not worth it at $20. It's not worth it at $2. Like, and it also has the Neo Harbor Rescue Squad soundtrack for $5.99. The soundtrack was pretty meh, independently. Yeah, I'm like, basically, avoid this game at all costs.
From what I've been playing, I don't think it's quite worth tucking into the void, but it's definitely not not the greatest thing I've ever played.
Yeah. Alex, is there anything you wish to add to the conversation that you haven't?
I think I've said everything I had to say.
All right.
About the aesthetic. I mean, I haven't played it, so I can't tell you how it feels or doesn't. But it doesn't look amazing.
Right. Well, that's just how the cookie crumbles.
It's nice that they have a character in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm. And more importantly, don't make it a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the 90s claps.
Don't get me started, bro.
Look, I work at a center for independent living.
Yeah, don't get us started.
Anyway, so that'll about do it for this review and this review session. Coming up on the week ahead, on Wednesday, January 8th, we will be doing our traditional year in review, going over the games that we covered in 2024. And we do have a new episode of MSP scheduled for that day as well. On Friday, January 10th, we'll be getting back to interviewing guests. It's always hard to pluck people at, either end of the holiday season. Anyway,
because we had a week buffer, kinda, it would have been a lot easier this time, but it's still not worth trying to deal with it.
Yeah. Anyway, on Friday, January 10th, we'll be welcoming Lukacs Rosinski of Vazarav Game Studios, who I think we have had on the program before. I'm not 100% remembering, but I think we did talk to him about Bee Simulator a few years back. And we will be talking about their latest, Barkor, which is a dog-themed. It's not it's not just like parkour, but with a dog. It's kind of out there. It's because it's an action stealth game where you take on the role of a tall, wagging canine 009 agent working for a secret organization that fights against an evil in a world that does not take itself too seriously.
009?
009.
I was not under the impression that that's exactly how the agent system worked in.
It's a bad
I guess
reference.
This is just reference.
It's a spin
it's
on
a bad
canine.
reference because 009, that would be for a cat. 9 lives. I'm not sure
Also
why.
That, yeah.
I'm not sure why the dog is 009.
Even if you're trying to say it's like James Bond, only 2 cooler, I'm pretty sure those were counting down.
Something like
and
that.
And of course,
the lower the number, the higher your prestige is.
Yeah. And of course, the forces of evil in this case are cats. Because of course they are. Anyway, so look for that on Friday. And until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.